In life, you can often solve a lot of problems by looking at them from a new angle. In Toodee and Topdee, this isn't just encouraged, it's required by design. Trading constraints and toolsets by alternating between a 2D side-scroller and a top-down perspective, Toodee and Topdee is a novel puzzle platformer that isn't afraid to offer up some real challenge, though that becomes a bit of a folly when it comes to boss battles and other enemy encounters. In Toodee and Topdee, you play as the titular heroes working together to save the universe after the dimensions emerge in a moment of complete and utter cosmic chaos. Which is to say, the story is just a paper-thin means to justify the gameplay, which was, fortunately, more than enough to grab my attention. Each level has a simple goal of getting both characters to the end, represented by a portal that takes them to the next stage. But the straightforward goal is complicated by the different obstacles each character must get through to reach the end. And these challenges are further complicated by the ways in which Toodee may need to help Topdee and vice versa. All of this adds up to an engaging way to take on each area because you're immediately forced to assess the environment on two levels. Beginning a stage is a matter of thinking about everything at once, planning ahead, trying things out, and adjusting those plans as needed. There are plenty of times you have to switch characters mid-action, freezing the other character in the position they were left in to intercept or reconfigure items. So while Toodee and Topdee is about playing with perspective, it's also about playing with time in interesting ways. Like any good puzzle game, you're constantly being taught the language of level design, which slowly introduces new concepts across worlds and even across levels. But the game isn't afraid to throw in some red herrings or get creative. The co-op is carried out well in terms of thoughtful options, specifically deciding whether anyone can change the perspective or only the currently active player. But I don't think this is a game that benefits from co-op because so much of what you do is juggling a mental model of the situation at hand. Playing Toodee and Topdee in co-op mode feels a bit like running a three-legged race. The bigger challenge is actually in the communication and ultimate execution, not the puzzles themselves. Toodee and Topdee is at its weakest when it forces the player to rely on speed. By far, my least favorite levels were the ones that force you to engage with too many persistent enemies at once, forcing you to make decisions on the fly in a game that otherwise urges the player to be meticulous. At these moments, Toodee and Topdee felt at odds with itself. This issue is at its worst during boss battles. I liked how it incorporated some of the core level design and puzzle solving from the world into the fight, but with the default one hit and you're dead kind of health bar, bosses felt more frustrating than exciting to defeat. The real challenge didn't come from the battle itself, but from the amount of spinning plates to manage between avoiding spikes, enemy projectiles, and making sure you don't switch to the other character at a time when they're vulnerable. Luckily, Toodee and Topdee offers a slew of game options that allow you to modify the difficulty to your liking. This includes things like adjusting the game speed and adding more jumps, to even the option to increase your health up to 5 hits, or just going straight for the infinite health buff. These options can be a godsend, but using them to get through some design issues doesn't absolve them, just makes them avoidable. The degree to which you need to multitask quickly just doesn't lend itself well to this game, which is more about offering mental challenges than ones based on reflex and dexterity. Toodee and Topdee offers a refreshing take on the puzzle platformer genre that delights in its clever level design. But unfortunately, it is held back a bit by its weak story and overly complex enemy encounters. For more on Toodee and Topdee, be sure to read the full review linked in the description below. And as always, be sure to like, subscribe, and tap the bell. Thanks for watching.